Welcome to the ninth episode of Ember in the Dark, where we are talking about the void, the space in between. We're not able to go back to how things were, our ideas, our beliefs, our habits, etc. And we don't really know how to move forward. We're a little uncertain in what the path looks like. It's a challenging place to be. However, it is also very exciting. It all comes down to your perspective. So if this resonates, let's get into it. Welcome back to the ninth episode, Ember in the Dark. I am your host, Mike Warren, and today we're talking about a interesting topic I call the void. It's the in-between space, right? We attempt to go back to doing the things we used to do, and however, it becomes more challenging. We're not getting the same effect out of those habits, those beliefs, those emotional patterns. And we know there are things that we got to let go of, and there may be some things that we have to release and change, and yet we don't know how to move forward, right? And so the way I like to position this is it's kind of like a blank canvas, right? And so having a blank canvas, it can be freeing, it can be exciting. However, if you're not really skilled in painting or artistry, it's hard to kind of map out where you want to go versus having a paint by number kit in front of you where, the ones are all blue. You just find the one, put blue there. And the beauty of this is you really get to create a new version of you and what that looks like for you. I'm going to tell you how to do that. You got to decide for yourself what that looks like, what that new version of you is. It's an unfolding process. It's a part of you where you get to bring all of you to the table, especially kind of going through this challenging period in the background of that denser emotional space where we've been releasing these emotions, letting these emotions go, reflecting on how we've been showing up, what's been effective, what's been ineffective, and the areas we want to make changes in. Well, now it's kind of like a blank canvas to integrate those changes, right? It's for your betterment. And like I said in my previous episodes, this is happening for you, not to you. And what I mean by that is those challenges that you've been, hit with in the past, and that you may be kind of experiencing currently, they were to bring up thought patterns, habits, beliefs, emotional resonances or anchors that have kept you in kind of a holding pattern. And as much as it sucks being in the holding pattern space, it was designed for you to get really clear on what's ineffective, such that when you begin to start moving by, again, loving yourself and giving that self-care to you such that your nervous system can start to regulate again, you get to start taking steps in a different direction. Because you doing something different will create a different result. The definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. How many of you been there? I'm raising my hand for you listeners out there. Like, I've been there. It's like I said, the example of I've been attempting to make chocolate cakes, and unconsciously I'm throwing vanilla in the mix and wondering why the result of the cake is not chocolate, right? And so the part of that process is really sitting with yourself. And like I said in my earlier episodes, it's like sitting with yourself in the mirror and really taking a look at the perceived negative or perceived ineffective aspects of ourself that we are going to start integrating now. And what that integration looks like is you taking action in regards to the person you want to be with the insights of the shadow or the dark that you have uncovered. And what that can look like is, for example, maybe you are someone who is a great support. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. So, for me, I'm someone who's a great support. I can support a lot in coaching and getting them to their goals and achieving their goals. However, when it comes to me acting out and achieving the goals for myself, that's a whole different story. It's a lot easier to coach somebody to do those things and create those results. However, for me to coach myself, so to speak, that's a lot harder. And what I recognized is in this period of shadow and darkness, my integration is action. Like I had this idea that integration was the awareness, the aha moment of, oh, wow, I realized this is how I'm showing up. Aha moment, the light bulb came on and I get the butterflies or the tingles on my body. Like that to me was like the integration. However, it wasn't until I recognized it's like, no, that is the awareness to make change. So I recognize that, if I want to make change in the relationship with my wife and my kids, I recognize I'm not showing up in a way that is effective. I realize that, and yet I continue to show up the same way. Nothing changes. Right. And so that's being in the void space where I'm attempting to go back to how I would show up in the relationship in the past, or starting a business, or the actioning of intent. And I would get by in the past by doing those things. Things would work out for me. And it was like I didn't have to put the action in or the effort in. And the being in this void space, the past is no longer acceptable or accessible. Right. And so I notice for myself, anytime I go back to ineffective habits, thought patterns, emotional resonances, any of those things that are from my past way of being, that's when a wave hits me and I get tossed around some more. It's kind of like the universe is pushing, there's like you see in the movies or like in a trap room where the wall is closing in and it's pushing somebody to an edge and they're not able to go back. And so anytime I attempt to go back, it's like the wall hits me and it hurts. So it's like it's forcing me to move forward. And what I got to start doing is taking all the learnings, sitting with myself, questioning where I've gone wrong or what I perceived as gone wrong or what has been ineffective. And now it's time for me to action and integrate them. Now, it may not be action for you. You may be someone who's very action oriented. However, when it comes to relationship, you may find yourself, more closed off and more focused inward about you and how people have to service you or be in line with your beliefs such that you feel good about yourself versus learning about compassion or consideration of others and taking their perspectives in. And so anytime you go into a relationship and you show up the way you have in the past, things start to break down. And you realize, man, the way I keep showing up in relationships are so ineffective. It doesn't work anymore. It's a good thing. If you're experiencing that, it is a good thing because it's universe, source, God, whatever it is for you, that is kind of navigating you to somewhat force you into change. And it's to do it for your highest and greatest good. Because on the other side of this void is a version of you that you have not yet experienced. That's why it's uncomfortable. So going back to the blank canvas analogy, it's you have that blank canvas to paint this picture of how you want to be, who you want to be. Right? And so that might be somebody, instead of scrolling on social media before bed, reads books before bed. Somebody that sleeps late, wakes up late is maybe somebody that is changing their sleep patterns to go to bed early and get up early. Right? It's different for every single person based on the journey through the challenge of the dark, that shadowy aspect. And so it's taking those components and start integrating them. Now, I'm not saying you have to take all of them and do them all in one day. Trust me, I have done that and it is hard, right? However, I've been taking little bites at it and I've noticed I get a little bit of space, a little bit more excitement, a little bit more joy in my day than what I had experienced in the last 4 years, that even friends and family have recognized there has been a shift with me recently. And because of that shift, they are recognizing, because of that shift, for me, I'm recognizing there's movement. And when I step back and look at what have I done differently, is instead of, laying in bed and feeling, woe is me, depressive, all of that, I took little bites of moving the body, taking care of the body. And I recognize now it was me regulating the nervous system and providing that self-care and that self-love, which I talk about in the last episode. And now it's a matter of, who do I want to really be? Because I have a blank canvas in front of me that I can really redesign how I show up. And one of the tools for me that I'm really practicing with, and I learned in this program that I'm volunteering as a coach for, is going 100%, right? My 60, 70% is a lot of people's 100%. So I was able to get by doing pretty much minimum in my perspective, and I would get the accolades for it. Great job. You did an amazing job here. You did an amazing job there. However, I recognized inside I could never really own the results because at the end of the day, I know I didn't put 100% into it. And so in this program that I'm in, I decided I'm going to see what my 100% is for me. And I'm going to go in 100% and go all out 100% such that I can see at the end of the program what results I've created and be in integrity knowing that I put 100% on the line and not just kind of skated by. So that's for me to integrate into my life, is to show up that way, right? And so what would my life look like if I put 100%, not all the time, however, more often than not, into all the things I say I want to do and create and be? So this void space is a great place to be because, again, it's uncomfortable. It's challenging. However, it's kind of like you're wiping the slate clean and you have a bunch of new insights from previous experiences in this dark shadow place that you can learn to integrate and make those changes. So it's time to start making those changes. You know, take a little step outside, take a little step further than you thought possible. You don't have to eat an elephant in 2 bites. Start with little nibbles. Get that little win under your belt and those little momentums moving to support you. And you will start to find that there's a little bit more joy coming back into your life and it's not so heavy. This is what's worked for me. So my hope is it supports you. And always remember, right, that it's for your benefit, okay? It is always for your benefit. It's always a perspective. It's always supporting you in growth at the end of the day, right? And so if this is your first episode, you know, I got all my episodes. The link is in the bio and it's on all major listening platforms, your Spotify, Apple Music. If you want to watch the video, it's up on YouTube. You know, definitely check it out. If you want anyone or you know anyone that you feel this may support with, you know, definitely share it. You know, comment below. I'm here to support and offer my insight and my perspective. I'm not saying I know everything. I just share from my experience. And I also want you to remember, no matter how dark it gets, even the smallest of embers will light your path. And my hope is this podcast is that ember for you. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next episode.